Most people think real estate success is about luxury homes and skyscrapers. My guest today built his business in one of the most misunderstood asset classes in America, manufactured housing communities. So we're talking affordable housing, real cash flow, and how thinking differently can change everything. Welcome to the JDS Podcast. I'm your host, Mazi Josh. Joining me is Leo Young, founder of Cornell Communities. Leo, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
All right. So, Leo, take us back. Now, how did your journey into businesses and real estate start?
So, real estate was kind of a winding journey. I was kind of forced into it. So, when I was working, initially I was working at Tesla, and it was a very intense period of the company's history. They almost went bankrupt. And so, everyone was working extra hard, and I ended up just getting quite burnt out. And I wanted to look into ways to protect myself. That way, I'm not relying on one source of income. So that led me to doing research, and then I found real estate. Real estate is a great way to develop cash flow and sort of build wealth while you sleep. So that's what led me to it initially.
Wow, that's good to know. So, what was the moment you realized this was the space you wanted to build in?
It was a initial idea, but I think you're constantly evolving as a person, and what drives you to the space changes over time. But initially, I knew that, hey, a lot of successful and wealthy people do so through real estate, or a lot of them invest in real estate. So I'm like, well, if I want to become financially successful, then real estate is a great avenue. And looking into it, it does have a lot of the characteristics that I like. Is that you're providing a useful service to the economy, you're providing housing, and also you have a longer term horizon. It's a long term game. It's not like AI. AI is like, how fast can you move, right? It's like tomorrow, 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 versus
Yeah.
real estate is like 5, 10 years horizon.
Wow. So, I'm 100% sure. In every businesses, there are things that you do that will be like, oh, I made a mistake at the initial stage. What did you get wrong at the beginning? And when you're trying to build your empire, what did you get wrong at the initial stage? What the mistakes you made?
Hmm. A lot of things. So when I went into real estate, I started as a passive investor. So I invested with a team that essentially would do everything that it takes to manage commercial property, and I was completely hands off. I just get the returns. I like that so much. I got my real estate license so I can learn and earn, so I can help a lot of people transact real estate, help them buy, sell, rent, invest. And through that, I think one of the major mistakes is not surrounding myself with mentors. And I say that because it would just shortcut your growth so much. I thought that I was able to do things alone, and which I am, but you don't go as fast or as far if you do things alone. So that was one thing that I learned. And then transitioning to the investment side too, the biggest thing that I learned is to test your assumptions and test your assumptions again. So when it comes to commercial property, a lot of this is math driven. So a lot of it is how you assume things will go. Where do you think expenses will be in a year, 2 year, 3 years? And for yourself, you need to make sure that those assumptions are accurate, because if there's one thing that's inaccurate, it sort of compounds over time, right? So you want to make sure that you're not too far off course. So those are the two things.
Wow. Wow. So now let's move on to your company. What is Cornell Communities in simple terms?
Cornell Communities, we're an affordable housing operator, so we provide affordable housing to people. We revitalize communities, and we do so with the help of investors who back us. They're passive investors. They ride along with the upside, and they get some of the returns with it.
No, okay. So when most people go into real estate, no, our mind is always skyscrapers, the big buildings, big houses. So why manufactured houses community?
It's an interesting little niche, and you might have heard of the saying that the riches are in the niches. So when it comes to a overlooked space like this, there isn't a lot of attention compared to other asset classes within real estate, like multifamily, for example. So we're able to purchase these properties at a much more compelling price point, and we can run our business plan much more consistently because at the end of the day, we have two missions, right? We want to provide affordable housing and then make money for our investors. So we're able to make money for our investors who make this vision possible much more consistently with a business plan like this. And also, another thing to manufactured housing is that it's very recession resilient. So you don't hear that term often, but this is because there's going to be demand for manufactured housing in good economies and bad, because it's the lowest cost form of non-government subsidized housing that we have. So that just means that whether the economy is good or not, people will always want cheap housing.
Okay. So now, when
that's a
you
great
approach
booster to
these
our business plan.
improving communities, now how do you do it without displacing the residents there?
So we do that specifically by not displacing the residents. So we buy existing communities and we continue operating it as such. And we do that by upgrading the infrastructure. So we make their space a more comfortable place to live in. You know, we will repave the roads, update their signage, put on fencing, landscaping, just make it all around a nicer place to live. And we might even convert old, outdated infrastructure systems like water sewer systems to municipal systems that are much more reliable long term. Because the number one enemy of manufactured housing communities is the age. Is that they're very old systems, and when they go and when they break down, it's impossible to. It's very hard to bring it back up again. So a lot of residents are displaced because owners are like, well, I'm just going to sell it to this person to build a shopping
Yeah, that's
mall.
true.
And cities love it
Okay.
because
So now,
that would bring much more tax dollars to them.
in this space, in this whole real estate space, what's one usual ideology that most people misunderstand? Yes, like yes, what's it
What
like?
was
I'm
one
going to the real
ideology
estate
that most
business.
people don't
What's one
understand, you said?
ideology that most people misunderstand?
Mm-hmm. Mm. So one thing that a lot of people get wrong, as I said
Okay.
earlier, is that people go into the space with short-term expectations for a long-term goal. So they want to make a lot of money. Real estate is not a get-rich-quick space. You know, it's a matter of slowly, incrementally improving properties over time. These projects take a long time to come to fruition. So people to invest in real estate, you should have a longer term horizon rather than, let's say, crypto or something that's like super quick, stocks super quick, right? You can buy and sell it with a flick of your finger on your phone. So having a longer term horizon view on it. Also, the second thing is that it is so important to have good operations when it comes to your properties, because if you buy a property at a good price and you don't operate it well, then that deal is still bad. So that's what a lot of people get wrong.
All right. So, Mr. Young, what's the biggest lesson this business has taught you?
Is that you have to be you have to be patient, and B, you have to be a good operator. So to be patient, yes, I mentioned that earlier, that real estate is not a get rich quick kind of space. You have to have a longer term horizon for it and make sure that you're investing as such. And the second is that you have to be a good operator. I think a lot of people, they overlook that you need to actually run the business. So commercial property is very much so like a business. You're in the business of providing housing to people, and there is a lot that goes into it. So you're collecting revenue, right? You're signing accounts payable, you're working with vendors, you're working with municipalities to get projects approved, you're managing budgets. There's a lot of things that you're managing. So the operations side is very important.
Wow. And then someone who's actually venturing into real estate today, what's the best advice we give to that person?
There's multiple ways to get into real estate depending on who you are. I think right now social media just gives this false sense that everyone needs to get their real estate agent's license or start by buying their own duplex or something. There's many different ways. So I started by getting into commercial real estate as a limited partner. So my first project was, I think, a couple hundred units. And that's just, I was a part owner in that project. I get to learn from the sidelines from a team that knows what they're doing. So that was what made sense for me because I didn't want to buy myself a second job, which most people do end up doing by accident. They don't want it. They just want to create cash flow. They want to create wealth while being hands off. So that's what makes a lot more sense is the private market sort of syndication route.
Leo, personally, I'm actually a very big fan of you. I Googled you and
Thank you.
then I got to see some of your ethics. Now, what's one habit or principle you live by as a founder?
Mm, I would say for me as a founder, I lead by empathy. It sounds counterintuitive to say because empathy. You think business, you think someone who's tough negotiator, right? Who works
Yeah.
their team very hard, and that's not to say that you can't do that, but leading with empathy meaning that you're able to put yourself in the shoes of other people better, and when you're a leader, you're responsible for delivering results for your team. And how do you make sure that your team is delivering the right results? You have to understand what they're working with. And people are more than just an employee, right? People have lives, people have things that go on outside of work. So you have to figure out what is going on in their world, what is their personality like, how do they communicate, how do they learn, and work with it. Because end of the day, you're all united under one vision to get results as a team. It doesn't matter what kind of personality you are, what kind of background you are. You as a leader, you're responsible for the results.
Quick one here. What's next for you and Cornell communities?
For Cornell Communities, we want to expand our holdings, so we want to purchase more manufactured housing communities, partner with more investors. We want to revitalize these communities, offer more affordable housing, and then also reward our investors for helping us along the way.
Okay. And then where can my audience actually learn more about you and then follow your work?
Great question. So two ways that you can get in touch with us. So one, you can visit our website at cornellcommunities.com. That's plural. And you can also reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn at Leo Young, Young, or on Instagram at Leo Young Real Estate.
I'll do well to actually add it to my description when posting. Leo, I appreciate you
Sounds
coming on
good.
and sharing this. Now, everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And then on Instagram and other social networks, please do well to follow Leo. This has been another episode of the JDS Podcast, where we keep the conversations real. I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.